The forest smelled strongly of perfume, though they were miles from any town. At first, Lena thought it was something in her pack. She stopped walking and turned slightly, sniffing the air again. The scent drifted between the pines with a sweetness that felt misplaced, like a memory carried too far from where it belonged. Not floral exactly, something powdery, soft, almost warm. Perfume. Behind her, Marcus nearly walked into her. "Why'd you stop? Do you smell that?" He inhaled through his nose, impatient at first, then slower. "Oh!" The word hung between them. It didn't belong here. The forest around them was dense and quiet, the air cool with the smell of wet bark and soil. Ferns brushed their legs. Pine needles softened their steps. They had been hiking for nearly 3 hours beyond the last marked trail, following a faint ridgeline toward an unnamed valley they'd spotted on an old survey map. No roads, no cabins, no people. Yet the perfume floated through the trees as clearly as if someone had sprayed it minutes ago. Marcus glanced around. Maybe someone's camping nearby. Lena shook her head slowly. That's not campfire smell. The sweetness thickened as they moved forward again. It clung to the damp air, oddly persistent. Even when the breeze shifted, it didn't fade the way a normal scent would. Instead, it seemed to reposition itself. Sometimes ahead, sometimes slightly behind. The forest itself remained quiet in the way deep woods sometimes are. Not silent exactly, but restrained. A few distant creaks of branches. The occasional tick of cooling bark as sunlight filtered through the canopy. No birds. Marcus eventually laughed under his breath. "Okay, that's weird." "What?" "It smells like my grandmother." Lena glanced at him. "What?" "That's the perfume she used to wear. Powdery stuff. She'd hug you and it'd stay on your clothes all day." He said it lightly, but his voice had softened. Lena smelled again. Now that he mentioned it, the scent did feel strangely familiar. Not personally, but generically, like something pulled from an old department store counter. Something safe, familiar, human. They walked another 10 minutes before Lena noticed the footprints. She crouched beside the faint indentation in the soil. "Marcus." He stepped over, following her gaze. The print wasn't clear, just a compression in the thin layer of damp needles. But it was unmistakably shaped by a shoe. Marcus frowned. "That's fresh." "How fresh?" He shrugged. "Within a few hours, maybe." The unsettling part wasn't the footprint itself. It was the direction. Whoever made it had been walking deeper into the forest. The same direction they were heading. Marcus stood slowly and scanned the trees again. "You think someone's out here wandering around in perfume?" Lena didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward, following the faint trail of impressions through the ferns. The perfume grew stronger. Not stronger like a person approaching. Stronger like something accumulating. As though the forest itself had begun to absorb the scent. Marcus noticed something else. "Listen." They both stopped. Far away, so far it was almost imagination, came the faint crack of a branch. Then another. Not animal movement. Two spaced apart. Like footsteps. They waited. The forest returned to its earlier stillness. Marcus spoke quietly. "Probably another hiker. 3 hours past the trail? People do stupid things." Lena nodded, but her eyes stayed on the ground. More prints appeared as they continued. Some clear, some partial, all heading forward. But after several minutes, she noticed something that made her stomach tighten. "Marcus." He crouched beside her again. "What?" She pointed. 2 footprints overlapped in the dirt. Not side by side. One directly on top of the other. But the spacing was wrong. A normal walking stride left alternating prints. Left foot, right foot. Here the same shoe shape appeared twice in a row, stepping exactly where the previous print had been. Then again, and again. Marcus frowned. "That's odd. Like someone trying to walk in their own tracks," Lena said. "But badly." They followed the trail another 100 meters. The perfume thickened into something almost cloying now. The sweetness coated the back of Lena's throat. Marcus pulled his shirt collar over his nose. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. The footprints changed again. Now they veered slightly off the ridge path, cutting through a narrow corridor of trees. Branches here were bent low, their needles brushing the ground. The soil beneath them looked disturbed, like someone had been pacing. Lena stepped carefully into the clearing. The perfume was overwhelming here. It felt concentrated. Marcus muttered, "Jesus." Dozens of footprints covered the ground. All the same shoe pattern. But they didn't form a trail. They formed loops, circles, back and forth paths. Whoever made them had wandered around this small clearing repeatedly, stepping over their own tracks again and again until the soil became a churned patch of dark earth. As if they'd been waiting. Lena turned slowly. The forest pressed close on all sides. Tall trunks, shadowed spaces between them. Marcus spoke softly. Why would someone just walk in circles like this? Neither of them noticed the change at first. It happened gradually. The perfume shifted, not fading, moving. Lena sniffed again. Marcus. Yeah. It's not coming from here anymore. He lifted his head. The scent was drifting away, not dispersing, traveling, back the way they had come. Marcus blinked. That's impossible. But when they turned, the air behind them was unmistakably saturated with the sweet smell, stronger with every second, as if someone had just walked past. Lena's chest tightened. Did you hear that? Marcus didn't answer immediately, because now there was a sound. Soft, measured, a faint compression of forest floor. Footsteps, coming toward the clearing. Both of them stared into the narrow corridor of trees. Nothing moved, but the perfume kept thickening. Step. Another faint shift in the needles. Step. Marcus whispered, "Someone's there." But Lena felt something colder settle into her thoughts, because the footsteps weren't approaching along the path of the earlier prints. They were stepping directly into them, perfectly, each new step landing exactly where the old ones had been pressed into the soil. The disturbed earth shifted slightly with every careful placement. Marcus took a small step backward. "Hey!" he called. His voice sounded thin. "Hello!" The footsteps stopped. The forest held its breath. For a long moment nothing happened. Then the perfume changed again. Not stronger. Closer. Suddenly Lena realized something that made her throat go dry. The scent didn't resemble Marcus's grandmother anymore, or a department store, or anything specific. It smelled like them. Not their exact scents, but approximations. The faint detergent from Marcus's jacket. The citrus soap Lena had used that morning. Mixed together into something sweet and familiar. As if the forest had tried to reconstruct the idea of a human smell. Marcus whispered, "Do you smell?" Yes. The forest remained still, but the footprints behind them slowly deepened, one by one, pressing into the soft earth, as though invisible weight was settling into each step. Coming closer, Marcus grabbed Lena's arm. "We should go." They backed away slowly. The perfume followed, not chasing, just staying near enough to linger. When they finally turned and began walking back along the ridge, the scent drifted alongside them for several minutes before gradually thinning into the ordinary smells of pine and damp soil. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Eventually Marcus said quietly, "Maybe someone's messing with us." Maybe. But Lena kept thinking about the clearing, about the loops of footprints, about the careful stepping into old tracks, and about the perfume, because the scent hadn't tried to imitate a flower, or a brand, or a person. It had tried to imitate the idea of people, the way someone might recreate a human presence from memory, or observation, long after the humans themselves were gone. And somewhere deep in the forest behind them, faint new footprints continued pressing into the soil, perfectly matching the path they had just taken. When they stepped out of the tent at dawn, the footprints had already formed a perfect circle around their campsite. Lena noticed them first. She had been unzipping the tent slowly, careful not to let the cold morning air rush inside, when her eyes drifted downward to the patch of moss just beyond the tarp. At first she thought it was only disturbed earth, maybe deer prints, or the shallow marks left by the two of them gathering wood the night before. Then she realized the prints were human. "Mark," she said quietly. He was still inside the tent, stuffing a sleeping bag into its sack. "What? Come here." Her voice had that flat tone she used when something didn't make sense yet. Mark crawled out beside her, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The forest around them was pale with early light. Mist hung low between the trees, and everything felt damp and strangely muffled. "What is it?" He stopped. The footprints circled the entire campsite. They were clear impressions in the soft soil and moss. Heel, arch, toe. Human. Barefoot. And they formed an unbroken ring around the tent, the fire pit, and the small clearing where their packs leaned against a fallen log. Someone had walked around them during the night. Over and over. Mark stepped closer to the ring but didn't cross it. "Did you hear anyone?" he asked. Lena shook her head. They had camped deep enough into the forest that trails had long since disappeared. The map labeled this area only as protected woodland, the kind that swallowed paths after a few seasons. No cabins. No roads. No one. The prints looked fresh. Damp soil still clung to their edges. But there were no tracks leading to the circle, and none leading away. They spent the next hour moving carefully around the perimeter. Every print faced the same direction, angled slightly inward as though whoever made them had been watching the tent while they walked. Lena crouched near one and pressed a finger beside it. "Still soft," she murmured. Mark followed the ring slowly, expecting at any moment to see where the walker had stepped in or out. The circle was perfect, unbroken. The forest beyond it was untouched. No snapped twigs, no displaced leaves, just stillness. The quiet felt thicker than it had the day before. Even the birds seemed to be waiting. "Maybe someone's messing with us," Mark said eventually. "Out here." He didn't answer. Lena stood and looked deeper into the trees. Something about the forest felt attentive, not hostile, just aware. The air carried a faint scent she couldn't place. Something sweet and damp, like crushed leaves mixed with wet stone. "Let's pack up," she said. Mark nodded. But as they gathered their things, both of them kept glancing at the circle. It felt less like a boundary and more like a drawing. They didn't leave immediately. The forest had become strangely quiet, and neither of them wanted to rush deeper until the sun climbed higher. Mark built a small fire while Lena boiled water for coffee. That was when she noticed the second set. "Mark," he turned. New footprints had appeared just beyond the first circle. These formed another ring, larger, not perfectly aligned with the first but unmistakably deliberate. Mark stood slowly. They hadn't heard anyone. The ground between the rings was undisturbed. Yet there they were. Two circles now. The outer prints were slightly different. The toes were longer, the spacing uneven, as though whoever made them was still learning the rhythm of walking. Lena's skin prickled. "Did we miss those before?" Mark asked. No, she was certain. They had checked the perimeter carefully. "These are new." They both listened. Nothing moved in the forest. No wind, no insects, just a long, waiting silence. They left the campsite soon after. Not running, just moving quickly, following the compass toward the faint river they had crossed the previous day. But something followed them. Not visibly, not audibly. Yet every few minutes Lena had the strange sensation that someone was walking just behind her, matching her pace exactly. When she turned, there was only forest. The scent from earlier grew stronger as the morning warmed. Sweet, almost floral, but not from any flower she recognized. It reminded her vaguely of skin after rain. "Do you smell that?" she asked. Mark nodded without looking back. "Yeah." Neither of them said anything else. They stopped for lunch near a clearing where sunlight filtered through a break in the canopy. Mark dropped his pack and sat heavily on a rock. "Okay," he said. "Let's just breathe for a second." Lena nodded and crouched to refill their bottles from a trickle of water running between stones. The surface reflected the sky in broken fragments. When she looked down, she froze. Footprints. 2 sets. Fresh. Leading toward the stream. She stood slowly. Mark. He walked over. The prints looked almost like theirs. Almost. The heel shape was similar. The stride length close. But something was off. The feet were turned slightly outward. And the toes pressed deeper into the soil, as if whoever made them didn't quite understand balance yet. Someone's following us, Mark whispered. Lena looked at the surrounding trees. No movement, no sound, just that faint scent again, drifting through the clearing. Sweet, curious, watching. By late afternoon, the forest had grown oppressive. The silence deepened until even their own footsteps sounded intrusive. Several times they found new footprints ahead of them. Sometimes only 1 or 2, sometimes a cluster, each set a little closer to matching their own. The spacing improved, the angles corrected, as though something was studying them, practicing. Maybe it's just the ground, Mark said at one point, though his voice lacked conviction. Ground doesn't practice walking, Lena replied. They continued anyway. The river had to be close. Dusk arrived suddenly. The forest darkened in layers until the trees became tall silhouettes against a dim sky. They decided to stop. Neither wanted to keep moving in the dark. Mark cleared a small patch of earth while Lena gathered branches. When the fire finally caught, its light felt fragile. The woods beyond the glow remained completely black. Lena stared at the ground around their new camp. For a long time there was nothing. Then she saw them. Footprints. Emerging slowly from the darkness beyond the firelight. Not appearing all at once, just forming. One after another. Heel, arch, toe. As if invisible feet were pressing into the soil. Mark saw them too. They didn't move. They didn't breathe. The prince walked carefully around the edge of the firelight. A circle. Not perfect yet, but close. And the stride was unmistakably familiar. The spacing matched Lena's steps. The weight distribution matched Mark's. Each impression slightly distorted, like a memory practiced by something that had only watched from far away. The scent in the air thickened. Sweet, curious, patient. Lena felt an unsettling realization settle slowly in her chest. The forest wasn't hunting them. It wasn't trapping them. It was studying them, learning the way their feet pressed into the earth. Learning the rhythm of their walking, learning the shape of them. She looked down at her own boots beside the fire, then back at the circle forming in the soil. The newest prints were nearly perfect now, but not quite. The toes were still slightly wrong, and the stride carried a faint hesitation, like someone reciting words from memory. Beyond the circle, more impressions began appearing deeper in the dark. Rows of them, practicing. Repeating, trying again, and Lena understood something that made the forest feel suddenly enormous. The footprints they'd found that morning, the perfect circle around their first camp, those hadn't been someone else watching them. Those had been the earliest attempts, cruder, uncertain, before the forest learned the correct way to walk like them. Now, in the quiet woods beyond the firelight, the new prints continued forming, closer, better, more human, as if something vast and patient beneath the roots was slowly rehearsing the act of becoming them.